Thank you, Director. The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replay on Saturday, March 25, 2017 at 12 noon, and Sunday, March 26, 2017 at 9 a.m. on Channel 14. Webcast is at www.sacmetrocable.tv. The open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. Right now is opportunity for members of the public to comment on items on or not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers?
There are no speakers this evening.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the consent calendar.
Motion.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any questions on the consent? Can we have the vote, please?
Director Gale.
Yes.
Gould.
Aye.
Orzali.
Aye.
Barnes.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
And Wood.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, moving on to presentation items. We have an item from Director Orzali.
Thank you. This item is purely a discussion item. It is seeking to determine the level of interest among the board about the creation of what amounts to a drop-down menu on the district's website that would allow, in my view, two things to occur. One, by having key indicators, whatever they were selected to be, I think about the data that is so consistently presented to us. So that key information, such as tracking of number of calls, our reserves, any of the other myriad forms of data that are kept, would be available on a pull-down menu, so you could go as directors and look at the OPEB funding levels, for example. The intent of that is, one, to create transparency, and two, is to create an efficiency so that staff members are not being bothered to go and get that information for us when we wanted it. Also, members of the public would be able to go and see the same information by merely pulling down the menu and looking at any of the data that's being recorded there. Initially, the intent is to have a select group of items there while we create this as a pilot and see what kind of effect it has, how complex it is to maintain. And then if it is successful, we might look then at expanding what key indicators. I do not intend to have all of the data that is tracked in Metro Fire available. It's vast and it would be unnecessary. But there are some key components that I think would be of benefit to not only we as directors, also perhaps to the administration, but the public in general, to be able to say, oh, well, this is how many calls they get, this is how their OPEB funding is, whatever it is that's selected. I have vetted this about the staff time issue, and I'd ask Melissa, who immediately said, oh, shut up. Melissa, would you care to chime in on the issue of staff time and the effect this might have?
Yes, thank you, Director. The amount of staff time that would be needed to initiate this program and then to keep it running would be minimal. These are indicators that we are already tracking. For example, some of the information provided to the Finance and Audit Committee during the regular presentations would simply be added to our website. The creation of the web page where this information would be accessed would take a little bit of staff time just to create, but then the regular upload of information would be minimal.
Okay, and is there somebody who could talk to us about the IT issue, what it would take to do this? I don't know if we have somebody here who could address that, but
I don't see Matt Roseberry in the audience this evening, but I did confirm with him that The website information would be minimal.
And of course, I want to commend our Director of Finance for, I met with her and she said, "Oh, wonderful, another genius idea from you." So thank you for that.
Another lie.
So
It's 2 lies.
with that, what is the sentiment of the board about the creation of this project?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, this is purely a discussion item right now, so if you have any comments or questions for Director Orzali. Director Sheets?
If the agendas are already on the website, aren't we duplicating the information?
Oh, well, actually, no, because this isn't an agenda issue. This is about data such as the charts that are presented to us by finance that show, for example, our level of OPEB funding, our reserve levels, and the trend data, where, for example, our reserves trending over, say, the last 2-3 years.
Director Jones?
Director Orzali, could you give me a couple more examples of what you see as key indicators?
Well, sure. I think OPEB is one. The level of our reserves is another. Over time, whatever are, for me, those would all be key indicators that we would want to look at, particularly the issues of our reserve funding and our OPEB funding, which when you look at that chart and the decision that the district made to adopt the idea that OPEB funding was simply a fiscal obligation, you see a dramatic, date-definite shift in the level of contribution that ultimately will pay huge rewards for the district. So that trend data and anything else that we're only going to limit this pilot to 3 to 5 topics to see whether or not or what the implications are. But I know that when I want to look at some component, I wind up talking to Melissa, which is never a good day for her. She then gets me information. All of this is stuff that could be done by just pushing the button and looking at it.
So you see it more with some on the financial information.
I do, however, I see some operational opportunities as well, talking about the number of calls. When you look at the trend data on calls, and I know when I talk to people in the community and say, well, here's our call numbers, people are often amazed at how many calls our Metro is responding to. So it just seems to me that this would be a good way for us to increase our transparency, provide information to the public, and reduce staff time.
I could see these basic, like you said, key indicators. That would be nice just to click on and see, okay, how many runs has Engine 106 done year to date in comparison with the last couple years.
And we could get to that. Right now, William, this is more elevated in the sense that we'd be looking at overall how many calls are being run in any given period of time. Let's say that's a quarter or a half or a year. This is really a pilot, and when I've experienced this in education, you find people become interested in, oh, really? Well, could we do this? And more data, more information becomes available.
You know, I also, just not to get too much in the weeds, but on that operations side, not just runs, but perhaps differentiate between medical aid calls and all the other calls that we have. That might be very interesting to track, both historically and then into the future, the next year.
When I first came to Metro, I was amazed and continue to be amazed at the amount of data that is collected and the efficiency and accuracy of that data. And this is just an opportunity to share some of that key component with the public and with ourselves.
Well, I think this is definitely worth furthering a discussion, coming up with a a relatively short list for a trial period and see what use it gets. That's an important part of the evaluation. Is, are we looking at it? Are we using it? And that would be an important step for evaluation too. But generally, good idea. I'd say let's go ahead and continue to discuss it.
I found in meeting with and the last point I'll make on this is, in meeting with the editorial board and the SACB, I met with them twice with Chief Hinkie, and they had questions that I thought at the time we should be able to just say, oh, well, here it is. So those are my thoughts.
Director Gold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Rosali, I support this idea, particularly as a pilot, because we can turn it on, see how it works, and then turn it off if we don't want to continue to support it. The only challenge that I would see is that as we push numbers out into the community for transparency's sake, oftentimes those numbers are difficult to discern. And one of the things I think we may have to increase our staff time on is boxes that explain. Because it's one thing to see trending data, it's another to understand what it means in the community. And so I would say that we've got to also consider that in some of that trending data, they might just be colorful lines that go up. Okay, but what does that mean to the community at large, and what does that mean to the operation of this organization? So I would just say, let's think about it's not just pulling data and numbers out of another system and putting them up on a website. There has to be some explanation, or I'm afraid that what it might do is for some data wonks that live out there, and I hope there are few of them, particularly looking at our website, it might trigger more phone calls. And now you're going to have staff trying to explain away a bunch of data that we've posted for transparency, only to auger in our staff because they're having to sit there and go into the minutia. So I think we have to be very judicious on what we put up. And then I think we have to be realistic that we've got to explain it well enough that it curtails the phone calls to command staff having to explain those kinds of things. So that would be my only input relative to a pilot. But I'm good for a pilot. I don't know that there's too much of a downside.
Any other comments or questions from members of the board?
Yes.
Director Gale.
I think the really significant thing, I was just looking at the audience and the taxpayers and Division 1. I expect to start inviting people to my home but for those kind of questions or something, as information gathering kind of thing. That here, I never see I haven't seen anybody from my division yet at one of these meetings. This is a place where you can get the whole thing easily. You ask questions. It's your business, and if you don't come to the meetings to do that, that's an indicator of something. I've been on many boards, education boards, work for the federal government, but just a few people come and who are really interested. And unless there's a crash or something, other than that, they come. They know where I live. It's on the website or whatever, and when I go to the other meetings, I mention the 5 district, how important it is. Those kind of things, I think, is any kind of effort we can get them to come to a meeting, say, we'll pay you to come to a meeting, or give them something to eat, some other kind of thing. That's the kind of thing with this. They'll know the kind of things that we do and how effective we are. But as it is, it's always just a few people who are interested in anything.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments or questions for Director Rosali? Director Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with everything. I think statistically it would be nice to see operational runs. It would go to show the support that the men and women do a great job and are constantly being called out. I would have to ask, legally, does that put us in a bind anywhere if we're doing financial projections of some sort? It's on a website and it comes up different.
I mean, Director Barnes, I would have to look at the format in which the information is being provided. And basically, if it is information that would be available by way of a Public Records Act request, then it is available to the public and you'd have no problems publishing it. But I would want to look at it from the standpoint of whether there's any issues of personnel privacy of employees when you start publishing information about overtime and OPEB and former employees and things along those lines. But based upon what I see and see here and have heard tonight, I don't foresee that there would be major or any really significant legal impediment to setting in place a program like this.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Well, it sounds like everyone's fairly in favor of at least pushing on to the next step and getting, I guess the next step would be to have a proposal drafted to be brought forward to be voted on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds like that's the general consensus. We'd like to see the pilot.
Great.
Yes.
And are you going to be working with somebody to get that going, or?
I'll be working with Melissa.
All right, wonderful.
And I
Thank
want to go on record, Melissa is excited about that.
Now we know you're lying.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Thank you very much, Director, for that.
3 or 4.
It's 4 lies already from him. Moving on to reports. President's report, I have nothing further. Fire Chief's report, Chief Harms.
Good evening. Tonight in a little bit, Chief Bridge is going to talk about an incident that we had that we treated as a near miss, that one of our members unfortunately was underneath a canopy on the front of the building. He's going to do a little presentation on that. For me, it's been a busy 2 weeks. We were asked to be involved with the debriefing and the critique up at the Oroville Dam. And Battalion Chief Adam House is going to go out there and represent Metro Fire as that moves forward. We had a number of assets that were up there and that were involved. We've been asked by Pierce Manufacturing to basically Shay from our fleet division to be part of an advisory board. And a lot of that will be on a conference call, but we've had a long history with Pierce, and they have reached out to us to be able to advise them on what are some of our challenges on apparatus, where's the future of apparatus, and being a part of that, and we're going to support Shay in moving forward. We're able to hire a communications tech too. His name is Bruce Bucknell. He just started the other day. We had a promotion of Krishana Fields, promoted from to Fire Inspector 2, and she has been with us for 18 years. Some of the other for me was that on March 12th to the 15th, I was with the Capital Region Executive Leadership Mission, and we about 60 of us all went back to Washington, D.C. We had everything from 65 degrees to a snowstorm that came through during the time that we were there. I would say that it was a very productive trip, but maybe not in the traditional style of cap to cap, of that you had an agenda and talking points and an ask. That the productive side was to be in D.C. with really such an interesting time. And one of the groups that I was with healthcare. So everywhere that we had gone and all of our meetings on healthcare were very interesting with a lot of the flux that was happening. It does look as though that group is going to try to do an annual trip along with Cap to Cap. Chief Bridge attended the Citrus Heights Chamber of Commerce luncheon in which they honored Captain Sean Condon as the, I believe he was Firefighter of the Year. It was an award that he had. We had the Cap to Cap all team meeting here on the 16th, and actually yesterday we had the awards luncheon. It was very well done. The staff here had it catered. Director Jones was here and did a great job of looking at that group of people that we all talk about that are out there doing the job every single day. The Employee of the Year, and I believe what they're going to do is in the future have them come before the board to kind of see you all. Captain Sean Condit was the the Captain Employee of the Year, and Fire Inspector 2, Diane Schmidt, was the employee. Both of them were the Employees of the Year. Peer recognition of people that were nominated was Deputy Chief Greg Cassantini that was here, Mike Hambrick, Engineer Kevin Summers, and our help desk technician, DeJuan Thomas. And I think the unique part of those recognition was that it was their peers that voted on them. So it wasn't a small group or someone had done something, but truly it was the peers that looked out and said, these are the leaders within the organization. So they did a great job. With Volunteer of the Year was Reserve Firefighter Dennis Berry. Talking with Dennis, he began in 1981, and I don't think he has any intention in slowing down or stopping, other than his 3 cruises a year that he does. Commendation of value went to Captain Josh Leonard. He was involved with an apartment complex fire in which they were one of the first companies to arrive on scene. As they were making their initial attack, he made entry where a family and a child were inside. The child had become separated, went back into the bedroom. He had gone into that bedroom under what we would call the risk management plan of risking a lot to save a life. And we say that a lot, and then when we look at the action that we do, he truly was extending his life to save another, and it was very successful in getting them out, along with Captain, the company of Engine 21, Rescue 21, Medic 21, and Engine 23. Those firefighters were involved and rescued a number of people off of a balcony, supported the operation along with getting the family. So it was a great opportunity to recognize our members that went above and beyond. Consistently, each one of them said, hey, I'm just doing my job. But truly on that event, they were going above and beyond what was expected of them. A few things that are going on is Metro Fire is a long history of hosting the annual Fire Mechanics Academy at the Fleet. And that's coming up next month between the 4th and the 7th, and they're going to have a dinner. Another great program that Metro has been a leader in across the state of being the host and allowing them to come here. And I think one of the great things is that all of our mechanics, instead of sending one person to go to a conference, they all have the opportunity to be involved with the annual Fire Mechanics Academy. One last thing is that on March 14th, the Metro Firefighter Association is having a retirement dinner. And talked to a few folks yesterday, and they have a great group of folks that retired in 2016, and they're going to have a great attendance for that banquet that's coming up.
You said March 14th?
April
14th.
I was just checking to see if anybody was paying attention to me right now. And that ends my report.
Thank you very much, Chief. Moving on to the operations report, Chief Bridge.
Good evening, President Wood, board members, Chief Harms, Eric Bridge, Operations Chief. I want an opportunity here to share briefly, in just a moment, some actual footage of that near miss that one of our members suffered last I believe it was on the 13th, if I'm getting the date right. But before that, I'm going to give you some of the numbers, and then we'll provide some context behind that when we talk about it. Since the last board meeting, we've responded to over 4,000 total calls, of which EMS-wise, we had been dispatched to 2,893 calls. And we continue to maintain a transport rate of about 70% of those. AMR assisted with 377 dispatches, and transporting 60% of the time. Between the EMS, when we separate that out, we're talking about another 1,000 different types of calls, a myriad of miscellaneous calls, but 14 of those were structure fires. So, but we train daily, and you'll see a lot of our companies driving here for training. They'll be driving down South Sacramento, North Sacramento. They're driving everywhere, and a lot of times people ask where they go and why do we see so many companies on the road? Well, they're preparing, they're training, they're preparing for a multitude of different all-hazard types of incidents. But we don't. This job that we do, sometimes it gets a little scary and gets real. So, just want to share a moment with you right here. We'll look into this one right here. Okay.
Sacramento firefighters got to this home on Firestone Way. As they quickly to suppress the flames, the unexpected happens. The garage collapses on top of one of their own.
Fortunately, the debris that fell on him was basic lumber material, and we were able to lift that off of him and then pull him further down the driveway.
The firefighter was taken to the hospital and later released. Neighbors say they're relieved he's okay.
I respect him a lot. It is a dangerous job, and I feel like it's overlooked a lot. So no, good for him.
Firefighters say a collapse is the most dangerous situation they face, and the #1 cause of death, fighting structure fires. Firefighters tell me in order for a collapse to occur, the heat has to be so intense that it knocks out the entire support system. And they say there's usually some sort of sign alerting them to the danger.
We look for changing conditions in the smoke pattern. Oftentimes, different colors of smoke can mean different fire conditions and different types of material being burnt. And we also look at any kind of change in smoke conditions once we apply water.
They couldn't say if any of those signs were visible this morning, but they're turning to this video and a few others to give them a rare glimpse of a fire from start to finish. It could help other departments around the country better understand what happens before a collapse.
So to be able to see that from the starting phase of the fire through the event until complete suppression, that's very rare. Very rare.
The family was home during the fire, but no one was hurt. Their loss, now a valuable training tool for the fire department. In Antelope, Dana Griffin, KCRA 3 News.
I'm glad that firefighter is okay. The cause of the fire still not known.
So sometimes it's good to provide some audio and visual to what we do, and we're fortunate that his injuries weren't significant. Nonetheless, he's missed a few shifts. I think he's missed about 4, and we're hopeful that he'll be returning back next week. So once he's cleared by his doctor, so that's the good news. But nonetheless, that day we had sent 24 of our members to that call, which is, for some people ask, how can we send so much equipment, so many people to a house fire? Because at the end of the day, it's that, when you see that. If you don't have that many people there, the outcome could be different. So fortunately, the Captain Vestal was talking about a lot of the plywood and things that fell on them, but when you combine that plywood with other structural members, it actually adds up real quick to, that piece when it fell down, I don't know if you noticed, but it hit the car in the driveway, breaking the parking secure device that actually released that car, which rolled back into the fire truck. So there's a tremendous amount of force that came down with that. So we're just very fortunate in that. But nonetheless, he's going to recover from his injuries, and we're thankful for that. And some other perspective when we talk about the busy work that our members are doing out there. We have about 37 engine companies, and a third of them run over 3,000 calls a year. So what does that mean? 3,000 calls. So basically, that's one of the standard numbers. We generally can make it right around 3,500 calls a year as a good benchmark where things start to get a little bit crazy busy for everybody. And so we have a third of those of our engine companies that are approaching that or above it. We have a couple of them. We have 4 of our companies that are over 4,000 calls. And that doesn't even get over to the ambulance, the ambulance side of business. And we have 16 of them that are over 3,000 calls. And we have 8 over 4,000 calls, and we have 2 ambulances that run over 5,000 calls. So real quickly, to add perspective to how busy the folks are. And then you add the training on top of that, along with inspections. And so I just wanted to take the moment to add perspective of the good work that they're doing out there. So unless you have any other questions, that's my report for tonight. Mm-hmm.
Director Gale.
Yes.
When I was a kid in the past, the fire department had a speaking bureau. They used to come to our schools. And as a matter of fact, I remember riding on a LaFrance truck, fire truck they had, and that was one of the things. And these kind of things that you're discussing, that what we really do, that the schools, the kids say, the fire department, you other than put out fires, we have an ambulance service, and that's the kind of message that we could get out. I don't know whether in the past I had interviews, take a chance to speak. I'm in the Twin Rivers School District, and I think it would be a great something if they would invite you to really see what happens and what do you do.
We do. We're fortunate that we do get invited to a lot of the schools in our district, and it is a good opportunity for us to share what we do, and we take advantage of those opportunities. So it's we like that.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Chief Bridge? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, thank you for the report, sharing the video. I know, Chief, I was out of town when you sent that text, so I appreciate the information on that, keeping us updated. The impressive thing about the video, and thankfully there's not too significant of an injury, but when you see that collapse and you watch everybody run towards that, it shows the unique profession that you're in and you all do here as a family. And that is impressive for me, looking, as most people would say, that thing is on fire, but yet they're all going to touch it, put it out, and help their partner. So again, the camaraderie of the profession, that's why I love it. And I'll tell you, first class. That was neat to see.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to General Counsel's report. Chief.
No report.
Firefighters 522, Mr. Bailey.
Good evening, Board of Directors, President Wood, Ty Bailey, Local 522. Chief Bridge, thanks for that presentation. I do appreciate it. I have a short report this evening. First and foremost, I want to thank Chief Harms and his staff for having an open line of communication with 522 since he's been the Chief of Metro Fire, and we want to continue to have that going forward. Chief Law, Barbie Law, who's here this evening, was recently voted in as the battalion chief representative to be the shop steward. So I want to congratulate her on her election. Also want to thank Steve Turner on the work that he has done for 522 and for the battalion chiefs over the last 3 years. So thank you. April 10th and 11th, myself and 2 shop stewards from Metro Fire will be going back to Phoenix because it's nice and sunny there. We have our partnership education program, 10th District IFF training that we'll be part of. So we're looking forward to going out to that. And last and foremost, since we completed our MOU implementation, we're currently working with Human Resources and our attorneys to put all the side letters that have been in place since 2007. We extended our contract, as everyone knows, 2 times, and we've added side letters, so it's been fairly confusing for all of our membership to really know what the MOU says, because when you look at the MOU, the side letters were in a separate section in our folders. So we're consolidating all that, plus cleaning up language. And we're looking at April 1st, or excuse me, by May 1st was our deadline. It looks like we're going to be able to achieve that at least 2 to 3 weeks ahead of schedule, so that's good. So I do appreciate that, and that's all I have this evening for my report, unless there's any questions.
Any comments or questions for Mr. Bailey? Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to committee and delegate reports. The executive committee has not met since our last meeting, and we currently don't have one on calendar. Communication Center JPA, Chief Bridge.
The Communication Center JPA has not met since our last report out on the 9th. Our next one will be Wednesday, April 5th, the day on Metro.
Thank you so much, Chief. The California Fire and Rescue Training JPA, Director Kelly.
Yes, the JPA met on March 16th. There was discussion about some meetings that had taken place between Cal EMA and apparently we're going to get the money to finish up the work that needs to be done at the training center, Zinfandel. So that's good news. Also, the California Fire Rescue Training JPA finally is out from under a lease that had been draining funds off the organization for some time. So that's a good sign, and we will be meeting again in a couple of months. Thanks.
Outstanding. Thank you, Director. Moving on to the Finance and Audit Committee, Director Kelly.
Yes, the Finance and Audit Committee met today. There was a presentation made by Amanda Thomas, and it was relative to CalPERS. And every year we hear from CalPERS that they are going to have increased costs, or it's not increased costs so much, but they are revising the factor that they use to figure out their investment return. And as that return is going to be dialed down a bit to better shore up the investments and to, I believe they're trying to put more investments in on the right side of the black and the red in order to look good, if you ask me. Anyhow, what it ends up happening is it's going to be increased cost to the agencies that participate with them. And it's something that we've seen over the years, and it's not getting any better as this pushes out to 2024, I believe. We are going to have repercussions from it. It's an unfunded liability problem that we're all aware of that needs to be dealt with. You will have a full report at the retreat that we have in May, I guess. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Director.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the Policy Committee, Director Gould.
It looks like we're going to have a policy meeting on May 11th. I expect everyone to put that into their phones. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Director. Moving on to board member questions and comments. We'll start to the right with Director Gale.
I'll pass.
Director Gould.
I just want to Godspeed to that firefighter that was injured, and to his family, who obviously were very stressed as well, and to all the men and women who cared for that firefighter at all levels. It's obviously a stressing thing to get those messages on our phone or have a friend call because they saw it on TV. And so thank you for the work that everyone did to make that a good turnout. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Rosali.
I just wanted to say that the chief's innovation of tweeting or sending out communications, text messages, thank you, about sending out text messages is greatly appreciated. It's made a real difference, and I appreciate the constant updates. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Director Sheets.
I just wanted to congratulate all the personnel that were recognized for their bravery and their peer recognition, and echo what Director Gould said regarding the firefighter with a speedy recovery, and thank the members for their quick response. And then congratulate Barbie Law and Steve Turner.
Thank you. Director Clark.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I also wish our injured firefighter a speedy recovery. I'm also very pleased with what I'm hearing from our 522 regarding the relationship with the chief. It's good. That is very important to this organization. So please keep it up. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Director. Director Kelly.
As the other directors have said it so eloquently, I will echo their comments, and everybody have a nice night.
Director Jones.
Thank you. Yes, again, another echo for all the comments that have been made. And I did attend that awards luncheon yesterday. It was very, very nicely done, a lot of class, and super important for recognition of individuals for outstanding work. So thank you to everyone who helped put that event on, as well as all the recipients. And then one quick note, this is up in regards to fire district participation in the community. Director Gale, you had mentioned that. And it just so happened that last year had that same inquiry. And at the time, Fire Marshal Greg Casantini immediately replied to me with the numbers of basically during the first 6 months of 2016, Metro Fire participated in 234 community service events. That's for the first 6 months and a couple weeks of 2016. So I think that's a pretty healthy number. Considering all the operational numbers we hear, that's part of our community service event number.
Thank you very much, Director. Director Barnes?
I actually have nothing this evening.
Wonderful. I would echo what everyone else said, and also to follow up on Director Gale's comments, I want to thank the Chief and Chief Bridge, yesterday Engine 61 was out at the Cordova Baptist Preschool and Kindergarten, and they had a wonderful time. Staff was just absolutely amazing, and the kids just had a blast with the engine. So thank you very much for that. And with that, we'll go into closed session, and hopefully none of you are here when we get back.
Let's go.
All right, we're all back. Let's report out of closed session, please.
Thank you, President Wood. The board met in closed session with respect to the items on the agenda with all board members present. With respect to the workers' compensation claim of Eric Sacht, the board voted unanimously to give authority to its third-party administrator to settle that case. With respect to the claim of Janice Lewis, the board voted unanimously to provide authority to its third-party administrator to effectuate a settlement of that case. And the last item, the government code or the government tort claim under Section 910, filed on behalf of claimant Frankie Griffin, was unanimously voted to be rejected and to be forwarded to the district's insurance carrier for further handling. That's it.
Thank you so much, Council. Note our next board meeting 3 weeks from tonight will be April 13, 2017 at 6 o'clock at a special location. We will be on the road at Station 50 at 8880 Gerber Road in Sacramento. Look forward to seeing everybody there and appreciate all those that are helping to make this remote board meeting possible. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.